Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Chandra Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivada Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivada Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tirabana Sari Jamuna Tirabana Sari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivada Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivada Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Kera Banasari Jamuna Tirabana Sari Jaya Radha Madhava Chandra Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Chandra Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Madhava Radha Jai Radha Madhava Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Gaur Pimana Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Sri Vrajgacharya Stotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Hilabai Charanarvin Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandi BT Founder Chariots Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Hari Nama Sankirtan Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Tiny Tagore Pimarandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. This stops every 4 minutes. Can give it. Yeah. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Yaksurandiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Srirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Shaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sridham Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayasabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama-shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama-shloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhamyam Swasaya Namaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Sri Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyai Namaha. Om Sarabhyai Namaha. Om Sarabhyai Namaha. Mukham karoti vacharam pangom langayate girim Yad kripa tamaham bande Sri Ganam Dinatalanam. Yad kripa tamaham bande Sri Ganam Dinatalanam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. Today we are beginning a series of lectures from the seventh canto of the Bhagavatam. Specifically, we are choosing the last 5 chapters of the seventh canto of the Bhagavatam, where Srila Narada Muni is speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj on the subject matter of Varnasrama Dharma. We have been reading for the last so many months from the second chapter of the Bhagavatam. However, we had just finished chapter 6 of the second chapter of the second canto, rather. So we will begin chapter 11. The main reason I am, we could say, jumping from the seventh canto to the seventh canto is to highlight the importance of this topic. I often highly recommend, and I continue to recommend also, for householders to especially to study these 5 chapters of the Bhagavatam, these 5 chapters of the seventh canto that deals specifically with the subject matter of Varnasrama Dharma. We unfortunately still have a lot of misconceptions, misunderstanding on this most important subject matter. Our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, spent a considerable amount of time speaking on the subject matter, both in his lectures on the Srimad Bhagavatam as well as his conversations that some of which were completely focused on this subject. So chapter 11, basically we will begin with this first of 5 chapters. Chapter 11 is entitled The Perfect Society for Social Classes. So 4 social classes naturally means the Varnas, 4 Varnas, followed by chapter 12, The Perfect Society for Spiritual Classes, which naturally is referring to ashram. So Varna and asrama, Varnasrama. Srila Prabhupada often would say, first is Varna, then is asrama. Depending on one's Varna, then the ashram is afterwards determined. After chapter 12 will be 13, entitled The Behavior of a Perfect Person. And chapter 14, especially for householders, is entitled Ideal Family Life. And the last of the 5 chapters, chapter 15, Instructions for Civilized Human Beings. Hari, hey, hey. One cat has come somehow. Just close the door. Oh, he came up here. The same way he came, he will go. Yeah, whatever. So just before we read, we have chosen text number 2 because number 1 doesn't have a purport. And I would like to underline and emphasize how important it is to understand the basic concepts actually underlying the whole philosophy of Varnasrama Dharma. And of course, we all know our acharyas, more recent acharyas, beginning with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, have especially introduced the term Daiva Varnasrama, to give it its proper, we could say, focus, in that all members within Varnasrama, within the social system of Varna and Asrama, are actually meant to be divinely engaged. Daiva means divine. Divine. Srila Prabhupada translates actually Daiva Varnasrama as divine culture. Divine culture. So the main point before we begin, we should understand that this Daiva Varnasrama and Varnasrama actually means Daiva Varnasrama. Varnasrama, the perfection of Varnasrama, is that individuals, when properly guided by the natural leaders of society, there are 3 natural leaders within society that are meant to give direction, to give guidance to those who are not by nature leaders. There are mainly 2 classes of individuals that make up any group or any society: those who are natural leaders and those who are natural followers. And of course, both need to be qualified. If one has only natural leaders or qualified leaders, but without qualified followers, it's very similar to if one is a qualified teacher but does not have qualified students, then this will not give the desired result. It's one aspect of the Vedic culture in the context of Vedic education that is of paramount importance, which is not followed, unfortunately, in modern day society in the context of modern education. So this we will cover as we go along. So main point I'm trying to explain a little bit is that, and it is of such great importance, our Vedic culture, and therefore this Vedic knowledge that we are meant to hear and to study and to cultivate on a daily basis, and not only in the morning when we sit to hear Bhagavatam class, but actually that understanding and that consciousness we are meant to continue cultivating throughout the entire day. But we are meant to live the instructions that we receive from the Bhagavatam. from the Bhagavad Gita on a daily basis. That is one of the important verses that we will read actually in this first chapter, chapter 11, given by Narada Muni, how smritam cha tadvidam rajan yena satma prasidati. In order to completely satisfy the individual on the physical, mental, social, intellectual, and spiritual level, the following is needed. Smritam cha tadvidam rajan. Narada Muni explains to Yudhishthira Maharaj that one who is actually serious in practicing the principles of religion or dharma should be constantly endeavoring. Smriti means to remember. Should be contemplating how to apply these principles of dharma, how to more clearly understand them. Of course, naturally, the more we understand, then the more we can apply. And this is something that Srila Prabhupada was emphasizing on many, many occasions, how to put into practice these basic principles of life that are given in the Bhagavatam in the context of Varnasrama Dharma. Maybe I'll just mention one small point which Prabhupada was explaining, that although we are the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is especially known for having given to the whole world this practice of bhakti. We are known by historians as, from the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the bhakti cult or the bhakti movement, bhaktas, bhakti, the science of bhakti, the science of devotional service. This was the specific order given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his most intimate, confidential associates, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, to go to Vrindavan and to deeply study the Vedic literatures and retrieve, we could say, from the Vedas the essence, and the essence, of course, being the science of bhakti or devotional service, which our Goswamis, of course, did in a very illustrious manner, and therefore we have today so many wonderful literatures regarding bhakti, which is the essence of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, Prabhupada in that context made the following statement, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, exemplified. He is the emblem of full expression of bhakti or devotional service in his personal life, which he, especially in the last years of his manifest pastimes in Vrindavan, was simply completely, fully absorbed in ecstatic emotions. So, and who wanted nothing to do with material subject matters, naturally. So, Prabhupada in that context explained how we will not falsely imitate Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We cannot. We cannot be like Lord Chaitanya, to be completely cut off from what we call external. There is external consciousness, being aware of where we are and what this world is all about, uh, and all the intricacies involved. And there is internal consciousness. Internal consciousness means personal cultivation of spiritual life. And so Prabhupada, not that he minimized the importance of internal consciousness, but he clearly wanted us to understand that we will not, our movement is not to imitate Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not to imitate personalities like Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur, but our purpose is to um, uh, reach out to all the people in the world and give them an opportunity to begin their cultivation of Krishna consciousness. And in order to facilitate or to help this process to happen, there is need of Varnasrama dharma. And as a matter of fact, Srila Prabhupada made statements such as, in order to actually become a Vaishnava, it is necessary to follow the principles of Varna and Asrama. So this was the, we hear, Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. This prayer is expressing how Sri Rupa Goswami is praying to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that let me kindly understand your most inner desires. The perfection of a disciple is to actually understand the desire and carry out the instructions given by the spiritual master, which are, of course, the desires and the instructions ultimately given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let us read our first verse, which is the second verse of chapter 11, entitled The Perfect Society for Social Classes. And this is spoken by Yudhishthira Maharaj. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha Bhagavan Srotam Ichchami Nrinam Dharmam Sanatanam Varnashramachara Yutam Yat Puman Vindate Param. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha Bhagavan Srotam Ichchami Nrinam Dharmam Sanatanam Varnasrama Yutam Yat Puman Vindate Param. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha Bhagavan Srotamichchami Nrinam Dharmam Sanatanam Varnasrama Yutam Yat Pumam Vindate Param. Shri Yudhishthira Uvacha Bhagavan Srotamishyami Nrinam Dharmam Sanatanam Varnasrama Sarayutam Yat Puman Vindate Param. Shri Yudhishthira Uvacha. Maharaj Yudhishthir inquired, Bhagavan, O my Lord, Shrotam, to hear, Ischami, I wish, Nrinam, of human society, Dharmam, the occupational duties, Sanatanam, common and eternal for everyone, Varna Asrama, Achara Yutam, based on the principles of the four divisions of society and the four divisions of spiritual advancement, Yat, from which Puman, the people in general, Vindate, can enjoy very peacefully, Param, the supreme knowledge, by which one can attain devotional service. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Before I read the translation to text number 2, I will read the text number 1. Sri Shuka Uvacha Shrutvehitam. Okay. Shrutvehitam Sadhu Sabda Sabachitam Shrudvehitam sadhu sabaditam mahatama ranya urukramat manaha yudhishthiro daitya pater mudandvita patrasya bhuyas tanayam swayam bhuva. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami continued, after hearing about the activities and character of Prahlad Maharaj, which are adored and discussed among great personalities like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, Yudhishthira Maharaj, the most respectful king among exalted personalities, again inquired from the great saint Narada Muni in a mood of great pleasure. So translation to text 2 today. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, my dear Lord, I wish to hear from you about the principles of religion by which one can attain the ultimate goal of life, devotional service. I wish to hear about the general occupational duties of human society and the system of social and spiritual advancement known as Varnasrama Dharma. Everyone can repeat after me. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, my dear Lord, I wish to hear from you about the principles of religion by which one can attain the ultimate goal of life, devotional service. I wish to hear about the general occupational duties of human society and the system of social and spiritual advancement known as Varnasrama Dharma. Purport. Sanatana Dharma means devotional service. The word Sanatana refers to that which is eternal, which does not change but continues in all circumstances. We have several times explained what the eternal occupational duty of the living being is. Indeed, it has been explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jiver Swarup Hai Krishner Nityadas. The real occupational duty of the living entity is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even if one prefers to deviate from this principle, he remains a servant because that is his eternal position. But one serves Maya, the illusory material energy. The Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is an attempt to guide human society to serving the personality of Godhead instead of serving the material world with no real profit. Our actual experience is that every man, animal, bird, and beast, indeed, every living entity, is engaged in rendering service. Even though one's body or one's superficial religion may change, every living entity is always engaged in the service of someone. Therefore, the mentality of service is called the eternal occupational duty. The eternal occupational duty can be organized through the institution of Varnasrama, in which there are 4 Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and 4 Asramas, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. Thus, Yudhishthira Maharaj inquired from Narada Muni about the principles of Sanatana Dharma for the benefit of human society. So, the subject matter of Dharma is very profound. It's a very deep subject matter. And in this purport, although Srila Prabhupada is primarily referring to or explaining, commenting on Sanatana Dharma and mentioning that actually Sanatana Dharma means bhakti. Sanatana Dharma means devotional service. And that has been nicely and very briefly, concisely explained by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jive Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. Krishna Nityadas. That is our eternal constitutional position. So this is, in other places, Srila Prabhupada refers to this as our spiritual swadharma. This is our spiritual duty and responsibility as eternal spirit souls. There is another eternal aspect which Prabhupada connects at the end of the purport also, that Prabhupada makes the point that this eternal occupation, this Sanatana Dharma, this activity of bhakti, can best be performed within the system of Varna and Asrama. This is precisely what is Prabhupada is telling, this eternal occupational duty can be organized through the institution of Varnasrama. And of course, in other places, he would explain how, as we mentioned a little earlier at the beginning of this class, that Prabhupada would go to the point of saying that this activity of this natural, eternal activity of bhakti, devotional service, can best be practiced by taking up the activities of Varna and Ashrama. Or that same statement actually being made by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that one more easily can practice his bhakti within this natural system of Varna and Ashrama. So one important point to understand is that in the same way that bhakti or devotional service is the eternal dharma, the eternal occupation of the spirit soul, the material system of Varna and Ashrama is also the eternal system for those living entities in the material world to practice this dharma. It is the eternal system, the ideal system, the perfect system. Here the title of the chapter is The Perfect Society. The perfect society, which Prabhupada again repeats in the next chapter. This chapter is referring to the Varnas, the four social divisions, the perfect society. And the next, of course, is the perfect society in terms of the four spiritual divisions. So in this way, we need to understand these two levels of dharma. Prabhupada especially emphasizing in the first portion of this purport, spiritual swadharma, bhakti, devotional service, the science of devotional service. And also, we need to understand material swadharma, our material swadharma. In modern day society, modern day civilization, quote unquote, is a totally misunderstanding about these two principles. Modern day society, the way it is arranged, is having no understanding of what is our material swadharma. And unfortunately, we see that because of the strong influence of modern day society, because the majority of our devotees are born within that misguided, ill-conceived social system of modern day society. Therefore, our own devotees, even though we are reading Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, have great difficulty understanding about this point. Have great difficulty understanding about what is meant by material swadharma. Material swadharma has to do with what are meant to be the natural occupational duties of mankind. And those, of course, will be mentioned in these chapters of the Bhagavatam. These are referred to and explained as well in the Bhagavad Gita. So we have, in other words, another way to understand it more easily, more clearly, we have two levels of occupational duty. We have occupational duties on the spiritual level as spirit soul, which basically are contained within the 9 devotional activities of Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam up until Atmanivedanam, complete surrender, completely surrendering everything in the service of Krishna. That is one level of occupational duty. These are the occupational duties of the spirit soul: to be hearing, to be chanting, to be serving, to be worshiping, etc. But there is another set of occupational duties recommended to mankind, recommended in the Shastra, and spoken about very elaborately by our founder Acharya, and that has to do with living the Vedic lifestyle as demonstrated by Krishna and Vrindavan. That Vedic lifestyle is intimately connected with land, intimately connected with cows, and naturally intimately connected with the ongoing primary cultivation of higher consciousness, which is meant to culminate in Krishna consciousness. So our challenge actually is to understand these two basic concepts and to blend and harmonize these two levels of occupational duties. We cannot, we are living in a dream world if we are simply concerned with spiritual occupational duty, because we're not living in the spiritual world right now. We happen to be in the material world. And the material world means there are material duties and responsibilities that we cannot neglect. Every day, this body needs maintenance. Every day, so many material aspects. Of course, Vedic culture minimizes, but does not deny or does not neglect, and does not recommend that we neglect also these different material occupational responsibilities and duties that we have. So, therefore, we are meant to be guided by these higher principles that are given in the Bhagavatam, the source of which are primarily spiritual in nature. At the same time, this is why this whole conversation is taking place. This is why Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking this question to Narada Muni here. I mean, Yudhishthira Maharaj was already a liberated soul, isn't it? He's a pure Vaishnava, and he's acting the role of a Kshatriya king. So one may wonder, well, why is he interested in material things? That is part of the duty and responsibility, not only of Kshatriyas, because Kshatriyas have to manage society. They have to give proper protection. They have to give guidance to the citizens, not only in terms of spiritual duties and responsibilities, but also in terms of how to, what is the best way that one can live in order to fulfill the primary goal and purpose of life, which is to become more and more Krishna conscious. And this is not only the duty and responsibility of Kshatriyas or kings to balance these two levels of spiritual duty and material duty, but it is also the responsibility of Brahmanas. Srila Prabhupada is a topmost Brahmana. That means one who is conversant with the science of transcendental knowledge. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada was very practical in also emphasizing the importance of Varnasrama, Dharma. So just to close on this point, Dharma, very important aspect to understand. Dharma is what brings us to our normal, natural position, natural, normal occupation. And on the spiritual level, that normal, natural occupation is to serve Krishna in various activities of bhakti devotional service. And on the material level, our natural, normal occupational duty is meant to be closely, intimately, daily connected with Krishna's material energy in terms of land, in terms of cows, and this we may not be able to understand immediately, and the proof is that because we are not acting on those instructions, that means we're not understanding them. But the point being made that to live or to fulfill these two levels of dharma, of spiritual swadharma and material swadharma, we need to have a clear understanding of our what is meant to be our duties and responsibilities on these two levels. In the first canto of the Bhagavatam, there's very important verse on the subject matter of dharma. Savai pumsam paro dharmo jato bhakti radhok saje ahaituki pratihata yagatma suprasidati. That last line of the verse is explaining how, in order to fully, completely satisfy the self, Atma, on the physical, emotional, intellectual, social, and spiritual level, we have to understand about dharma, especially in the context of bhakti. That is the param dharma. Similar instruction is given. That verse will be coming up in a few days. Actually, it is the 7th verse, wherein Narad Muni explains also, dharma mulam hi bhagavan sava vedamayo harihi smritam cha tadidam rajan yena satma prasidati. Same instruction being given, being repeated actually by Narada Muni. So we hope that by looking at these different verses and sections of these 5 chapters, that we can, that more of our devotees can at least begin giving more attention to this very important aspect of our Krishna consciousness mission. It is a mission practically within a mission. We have the larger Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is to spread the holy name, which is to spread not only the holy name, but to spread the principles of dharma. And so the more we can be clear in our understanding of these principles of dharma, then we will be able to be more successful in how we are practicing in our daily lives, and we will also be more successful in executing and following the desires and the orders of our spiritual master, our founder, Acharya's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. So we will close here for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.